Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at Ancient Roman, the third lecture for History 1. Now take a look at this picture. This is a picture of baby boys who were brought up by a she-wolf, a female wolf, and one of these babies became the founders of Rome. Okay, so these babies were actually abandoned by their mother because she didn't have a choice. She put them in a basket and float them down the river, and then the wolf, this female wolf actually found them and brought them up. So one of these babies, like I mentioned earlier, would become the founder of Rome. Okay, so Romulus was the founder of Rome. 800 BC, a Latin princess gave birth to a pair of twin boys fathered by the god Mars. This princess took an oath where she's not supposed to have children. So because of the birth of this pair of twins, she had to conceal the birth, right? So the city of Rome actually came from the name of Romulus. Okay, so this is a sculpture, very famous sculpture of the babies brought up by the wolf. Okay, a little bit of the geography of the place. Okay, Rome, unlike Greece, which we have covered last week, they had a better place in geography. They had a pleasant climate. They had lots of fertile soil, which meant that they could actually do more farming and more agriculture. And they also had the Tiber River, which is the main source of water, mode of transportation, and this is actually a very helpful source of water for all the domestic use. Okay, so Rome started off as a peasant settlement 24 kilometers upstream of the Tiber River in a region of a group of 7 hills known as the Palatine Hills. So this is just an image of how simple the village where the early Roman people were located at. Now, because they were surrounded by lots of forests, and these forests actually supplied the Roman people with timber, which they used to build their homes, bridges, and also, most importantly, to build boats. So that is why the Romans are very good seafarers. They are very developed. They are very good in their warfare, in their sea battles, and also the building of boats actually helped them in trades, because they could now easily move from one place to the other. So this is how a very early Roman boat would have looked like. Other than that, the Romans painted lots of frescoes on the wall of everyday activities, and it gives you an idea of the kind of life that they led. Okay, in terms of agriculture, they planted barley and wheat, and you can see that in the picture on your right is a bakery, and this man is buying some bread, and we could guess from here that the bread is actually made from wheat. Okay, now because of the fertile soil that we all know Roman has, agriculture became a main source of economic activity, because you now have a surplus of food, you have a lot of storage of food, and because of this, they could actually use this agricultural produce for trading. And also meant that they didn't have to focus all their time in trying to grow crops for a living. Now they could actually venture into other businesses. Okay, and other than that, the Romans also developed very extensive, very intricate use of mosaic, and also drawings. And here you could actually see the kind of food produce that they consume. The picture on your right is said to be a fresco found in a fish farm, and you can actually see the different kinds of seafood, yeah, that would probably have been found on the farm. Now this picture is showing you a Roman dinner party. Now if you were invited to a Roman dinner party, you would be served by many servants, as you can see, the ones that are over here, right, and also over here. So all the guests in the dinner party, yeah, would be served by these servants. So they were, had just chilling on their sides, and food will be served to them. And look at all the mess on the floor. Yeah, all the bones and things like that. Now it was said that the Romans spent a lot of money and a lot of effort, yeah, in their food preparation. It is said that one of the Roman delicacies is this kind of roast, where you would stuff, yeah, a pigeon, yeah, with a quail, which is a smaller bird. So you have quail in the pigeon, then you have the pigeon stuffed in a chicken, and then a chicken in a duck, and then the duck in a goose, and then you have, oh, I forgot, they also had a rabbit stuffed somewhere in between these arrangements. So you have this very very lavish, yeah, kind of meals. You have these very lavish kinds of lifestyle, trying to show you that many of the Romans were very prosperous during that time. Now going back to this dinner party that you can see over here, the Romans felt that it was a very rude thing, yeah, for you to leave the dinner party if the dinner is not over yet. So just in case if you need to go to the loo, yeah, you would just have to call. One of the servants would come with a pail or some container. So if you need to, pee, then you will do it there, so that you don't have to leave the dinner table, so that you will not, yeah, be seen as rude. Or what happens if, you have so much food and you can't finish? Now the etiquette says that it is very rude for you to refuse food if you are being served, yeah, by the host. So they will again call the servant, please bring that pail, and you turn to one side and you start to puke out everything in your stomach so that you could continue eating. Now this is just an example of a dinner party, and you will also find that this kind of rooms, yeah, where people would go to throw up, yeah, would be seen in some public buildings as well. So it tries to show you this kind of lifestyle that the rich Romans were enjoying. Of course, there were many slaves as well that we will go look at later on. So who were the Romans? If you remember, when we spoke about Greek last week, we said that Greeks were philosophers. They had lots of ideas, they were questioning a lot of things, they came up with many different philosophies. And I think it's easy to say that the Romans were very practical people on the other hand. Yeah, they were practitioners. So whatever that the Greeks have actually came out with in terms of philosophy, the Romans were the ones who implemented them, who carried forth, yeah, whatever the Greeks have introduced to them, and on top of that they improvised. So the Romans were very good in warfare, yeah, in fighting wars, in engineering, yeah, and in setting up governments. They were practitioners, yeah, they were practicing whatever that the Greeks have found, yeah, and they were builders. You can say that many of the things, yeah, that the Romans built, many of the cultures that the Roman had, even in terms of the belief system, were influenced by the Greeks. Okay, so they were influenced by the genius of the Greeks. The Romans introduced, yeah, a few more building types, yeah, and also construction systems, and especially a new kind of material, which is concrete, which we will look at in more detail later. And they also developed architectural form and architectural design in a very grand scale because of the use of concrete. Now the Romans were not as religious as the Greek. They were more into entertainment, so they had lots of recreational buildings, rather than Greeks, who were more focused on building temples and having decorative elements that represented the Greek beliefs. So the Romans introduced much more interesting building types. Okay, and they also developed this compulsion to spread the benefit of the Roman law. They felt that because being Roman means that you are civilized, so they had a deep intolerance for people who were not Roman. So every time where they captured or they conquered a certain portion of the land, they would want to Romanize the people. That means they would want to teach those people that they have conquered the Roman way of living, and to follow the Roman style and to follow the Roman law. That is why you can see that the Roman architecture is very, very widespread throughout many different countries. Now we wanted to put this comparison here between the names of the Greek gods and the Roman gods, to show you that even in terms of their religion, they have a very typical personification of both gods. For example, we looked at Poseidon, the last one. Poseidon, we all know, is the god of the sea. For the Greeks, his name is Poseidon, and in Roman, they called him Neptune. So you don't have to worry about all these gods. Just wanted to show you that the Roman religion, like the Greek religion, were a religion that believed in many, many different gods, and different gods had different rules. Okay, this image is showing you warfare, which the Romans were masters at. You could actually see the kind of the kind of uniform that they were wearing. And this is a battle by foot, a battle on land, right? And these were the kinds of formation. This, you can say that this is the idea of an early tank, where you had the shield, the man in front would hold the shield to the front, and the man at the back would hold the shield above them, so they could actually protect each other. Now it is said that a Roman soldier who loses his shield has committed a very big crime. The reason being is that when you lose your shield, it's not that you could not protect yourself, but when you lose your shield, you actually open up a very big possibility for your team member to be attacked as well, because you see, these were the kind of formation that they had, right? And I would like to point out to you that the Roman army wore leather sandals or slippers, and they were tied at the ankles. This allowed for proper footing, so because now you don't have to you could actually move faster because your sandals were more firm and you were tight, as compared to the Greeks who did not have this kind of sandals. So it made warfare for the Romans much more easier. So you need to wear proper shoes. And if you could see at the bottom of the shoes, you have all these spikes. It is said that when a Roman soldier gets his salary, he will buy and add on more spikes, because it creates a form of resistance in your footing, and it will make your footing better. Okay, so you can say that these sandals actually help the Roman Empire spread itself. Okay, let's continue. This is another picture showing you the Romans in a sea battle. So you can see that they were not only good on the ground, but also not only good as foot soldiers, but also in sea battles. Alright, now the Roman community can be divided into these two general groups, which are the patricians. These are the rich people, members of the Senate, political debaters, and they carried out all the religious ceremonies. So you can see that the patricians are the high class people in the societies, and the plebeians, these are the common people, people who pay tax, farmers, and also slaves. So how do you identify between the patrician and the plebeians? Are by the costumes that they wear, or the togas that they wear. So your dressing would actually give you away as what you do, whether you're a knight or whether you are someone religious. And also normally they have this crimson stripe or these purple stripes, like the one you can see over here. This would actually tell you what are the contributions or where do you stand in society. And obviously if you're a plebeian, you wear less ornamented or no ornaments at all in your clothing. Okay, so in terms of status wise, they were very not obsessed. I wouldn't use the word obsessed, but they were very concerned about their status, because even if you're walking on the street, people will be able to know who you are, right? Every Roman child is educated to read, write, and count, and taught swimming, sword fighting, playing musical instruments by their parents or a hired slave tutor called a pedagogue. Normally, they will have a one-to-one slave, or one slave for the entire children in the family who are going to be taught, are going to be educated. So the Romans are not only educating their children, to read and write, in terms of academics, but also in terms of sports and also in terms of music. So you have this kind of importance put in for education. Okay, so these are some general characteristics that is being used to describe the Romans. Very stern, very brave, very steadfast. They were very ambitious, very competitive. Okay, they spend lavishly on their dressing, on their housing, on their entertainment, on entertaining guests. And Roman men wore the toga and tunic, and while the woman adorned the stola. And it is said that a Roman wife should be able to weave the toga or the tunic for the husband. Okay, so the color denotes the rank, like I mentioned earlier, and the status. So a knight's trabea is laced with the crimson stripe over here to show you that he is a knight, and he has, done something good for the country. Okay. The women of Rome, they had a better place in society as compared to the women in Greece, because women in Rome, were educated, and they also had a role, in decision making, especially in terms of running the household and running the family. And the Roman women could actually also go out to the public buildings, to the Roman baths, and interact with each other. So they had a more liberal kind of life as compared to the Greek wives. But there are also certain events or certain buildings where the women of Rome could not go. For example, if there's a gladiator fight, if you're a woman in Rome, you will not get to sit in the front seats. You will be placed right at the top. Okay, so there still is this differences of how a woman is being treated in the times of the Romans, but very much different, better than the Greece period. Okay, now just to show you the many different hairstyles that the Roman women wore, and of course I'm very sure that they had many servants to help them to do up their hair, and all these different kind of fanciful headgear that they are wearing. Okay, have you ever heard of this phrase that Rome was not built in one day? Have you ever wondered why it is said that Rome was not built in one day? I wanted to show you the floor plan of a city in Rome, and to show you all the different kinds of building types and building forms that the Romans actually developed, and they built extensively. They built very big structures, and their kind of architecture is seen in many different parts of Europe, where they conquered. So that is why it is no wonder that you actually have this phrase, yeah, that Rome was not built in one day, because of the extensiveness, yeah, of their empire and the extensiveness of their building projects. Now let's look at Roman architecture. Okay, earlier on we mentioned how they were practitioners of whatever that the Greek, yeah, philosophers have come out with. Yeah, they were very advanced in terms of their architecture and especially in terms of their engineering, because now they could solve the problems that the Greek could not solve. If you remember in the last lecture, yeah, when we talked about Greek temples, you will realize that Greek temples had very limited use of interior spaces, yeah, because the spaces became unusable, yeah, as it was filled with these gigantic columns. Whereas the Romans actually developed a system, yeah, where the columns, yeah, would not be, they would not need to have such massive columns, and therefore the interior spaces would be very big, and they actually have different kind of load-bearing system. Okay, so aesthetically, from the exterior, from the view of it, yeah, from a glance of it, okay, the Romans were following very much of the Greek kind of design. However, in terms of structure, yeah, they did not follow the Greek way of structure, of building, of constructing. They improvise. Yeah, so if you're not very sure between Greek and Roman architecture, you would definitely get confused. Okay, but because they look really similar to each other. And I also want to point out here, yeah, that as you go and do your research, yeah, Greek, Roman, please look at the timeline. Okay, when were these buildings built? Because later on during the Renaissance period, you will see that Greek and Roman architecture is again being copied. And then later on in history, yeah, in your classical architecture, you see again the revival of Greek and Roman architecture, because they were said, yeah, that the Western world really admired Greek and Roman architecture, that it became an architecture that was copied, yeah, because it was said to be perfect. Okay, so for short, Roman architecture looks like Greek architecture, however the structures were different, so the spaces were more usable in the interior. Okay, construction methods and characteristics. Now, it's very important for you to note this down, that the Romans actually introduced arches, the first picture here, yeah, which is a very 2D structure. Okay, it holds the load of all the weight, yeah, of the structure above it, because the load transfer will now go down to the columns on the piers. So the Romans developed this. So this is good for load transfer. And they also developed what we call a vault, okay, and also a dome. Right? So what is the difference between an arch, a vault, and a dome? An arch, I would like to, simplify it to say that it's very 2D, yeah, whereas a vault is an extrusion, an extension of the arch, and a dome is almost like an arch which has been rotated. So you will see that the load transfer, yeah, of the structure would be distributed. If it's for the Roman arch, it will goes onto the piers, yeah, for the Roman vault as well to the piers. However, for the Roman dome, yeah, load transfer will go down to the series of columns or colonnades around it, or also onto the walls. So this is the construction method, or the solution, yeah, the structural solution that was introduced by the Romans. So next time, if you walk under an arch, if you see an arch, yeah, know that this technology in terms of construction were introduced, yeah, by the Romans. So because of these methods, yeah, the Romans were able to construct bigger temples and buildings than before, yeah, than compared to the Greeks. Okay, and the adoption of imposing building scales and size to reflect the grandeur of the empire. So because of this advancement, they were able to build bigger building, more magnificent building. And for the first time, they could actually design a dome, and buildings had this circular, spherical, semi-sphere kind of roof structure, which would never, the Greeks would have never in a million years thought, it to be possible. Okay, so how were the Greeks? How were the shapes that the Greeks used were assimilated? Architectonical orders were used more in a decorative than in a practical way. If you remember, we talk about the Greek orders. What are the Greek orders? Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. Doric being masculine, Ionic being feminine, Corinthian has a plant-like structure. So the Romans still use these Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian columns, but not as a column, not as a load transfer or a load bearing element, but more of a decorative element, because now they had a wall, they use a wall, to transfer the load. Okay, so you have this row of columns in front of the wall just as a decorative element, to create a sense of an aesthetic view. Okay, but they also added another two more classical orders, which is the composite column and also the Tuscan column. So this is how the composite column looks like, much more complicated. It looks like it is a combination of the Ionic and Corinthian. And you also have the Tuscan order, which is very similar to the Doric column. But can you tell what is the difference between a Tuscan column and a Doric column? Okay, other than it looks like it has a base, you will also see that the Tuscan column do not have the flutes like this. Okay, they are very smooth and straight. Okay, they are just a very smooth surface. Concrete technology. This is the material that made all the changes and made all the construction systems, the arches possible, the domes, the vaults possible. Okay, because of the use of concrete, which is in a powdered form. You can mix it with aggregates, you can mix it with stone, you can mix it with sand in different kinds of composition. You can use it here as a grout to build your floor, or you can even cast it into a block, or you can use concrete as a mortar, which holds many different pieces of stone together. So the flexibility of form, and the fact that concrete is easily available, or it's easier to work with as compared to stone, because you need to go and mine the stone and cut the stone, and bring it to site. Concrete is something that makes construction much more easier. And you can see over here, this is what we call the coffered ceiling. Okay, this is what we call the coffered ceiling. You have seen the coffered ceiling over here just now. This is in the Pantheon. Okay, you can see that the coffered ceiling is being used. Now, how do you actually build a coffered ceiling? Okay, you come out with the formwork, and then you pour concrete into the formwork like what we do today, and then later on you remove the formwork and you come up with this coffered ceiling design. Now, why do they come out with this coffered ceiling design? I will explain it to you later. When we look at some pictures later, it will make more sense. Okay, so new kinds of construction system. Okay, arches, vaults, and domes. Please make sure you know what the differences are. Then two new column orders, and also the use of concrete changed the way how architecture of the Romans were and made them different as compared to the Greeks. Okay, we just talked about the use of concrete in construction. It is a substitute for stone, okay, and it also allowed for more dramatic forms in terms of construction, because it can be used as a mortar. Therefore, you can have arches. It can be used as it can be poured into cast, and you can cast many different forms out of it. And also overall, when you have vaults, you have domes, you actually break away from having just a very square a very flat kind of surface in architecture, like what the Greeks initially had. Okay. The freedom of concrete also inspired the colonnade screen, which is a row of decorative columns in front of a load-bearing wall. Okay, because you have a load-bearing wall, like I mentioned in a few slides earlier, okay, where the load of the roof is actually transferred onto the wall, you now can have a screen of columns, yeah, which serves as an aesthetic, yeah, decorative element. Okay, and not really to carry the load of the roof, right? Other than that, they use tiles and mosaics, yeah, to covered concrete, yeah, instead of marble, yeah, as a building material. Okay, concrete also freed the floor plan, yeah, from rectangular cells, because when you relied on columns as a load transfer, you had to follow, yeah, a particular modular system. 4 columns, either you have like a modular system, you have a grid-like modular system which you had to follow, so you couldn't really come up with, yeah, something that is breaking away from that modular system. So when you have concrete, yeah, you actually made, yeah, the floor plan more dynamic, right? Other than that, they used arch and vaults, yeah. They also created apses, domes, okay. So these spaces, yeah, actually created a very big open space, yeah, in public buildings, and therefore for the first time, buildings, yeah, were able to accommodate a big large crowd in its within its building. Okay, just to show you the mosaic work, yeah, of how different colored mosaics, you know, placed together, almost like a jigsaw puzzle work of art, coming out as a decorative element. So these replace the extensive use of marble, yeah, to decorate the space. Yeah, so you have this on the floor, on the walls as well. Yeah, this is a picture of a gladiator fight, I suppose. You're on a mosaic work on the floor. You can see how intricate, yeah, and how the different tones, yeah, of colors is being used, yeah, to create a 3D effect in the mosaic. So these mosaic pieces are actually placed one piece at a time, as compared to the mosaic that we have today, okay, which actually comes already prefixed, yeah, in almost like a tile-like form, and then you just paste that, yeah, the entire the tile-like form onto the surface that you want to put the mosaic. So it actually is a shorter cut of doing things. Okay, so you might want to run down to, you know, I don't know, if you go to one of the hardware shops or construction supply shops, and when you look at mosaic, have a look at how mosaic actually comes in a, a piece, yeah, it's probably stuck to a piece of wire mesh or something. Yeah, but what the Romans had were totally different. These ones are made by hand, each and every piece of it. So you can see the finesse or the arts, yeah, being put inside. Let's look at some Roman building typology. Okay, they also worked on infrastructure. You have residential buildings, different kinds of residential buildings, recreational buildings, different kinds of arts, public buildings, and also, of course, the religious buildings. In terms of infrastructure, the Romans built many roads, bridges, aqueducts, yeah, and also defensive walls. In terms of residential, you have different kinds of housing, yeah, depending on the location, yeah, and also for different kind of people. And the most exciting, yeah, building types were the recreational building types. So you had the theaters, like the Greeks, yeah, but very, very different, yeah, in terms of the way how it's constructed. Amphitheaters, where there's 2 theaters. Theaters are normally half circle, and you have amphitheaters, a complete circle. You have a circus or a stadium, and you also have baths, right? We'll talk about that later on, yeah. All road leads to Rome. This is another saying, yeah, talking about the Roman civilization, right? If you look at this picture over here of the map, you will see how the paved roads, were being constructed, in order to connect all the different parts of the Roman Empire to Rome. Okay, now this was said to be, the picture over here was said to be the types of road construction, infrastructure construction that the Romans built. The reason for them to have proper roads is to ensure that you have proper communication system. Also, if you needed to deliver a letter where someone would run on a relay, to deliver a letter back to Rome, let's say you have a enemy coming, so you have someone who has the information of the enemy coming, and then you will have them running on these roads, relay to pass it on to the next person, and the next person will carry on the message to the next person until it reaches Rome. So in order for you to expedite this process of communication, you need to have proper roads, because you can't get you can't waste any time if you need to cross ditches or run through streams or climb mountains or whatever. So you have to have proper road systems, also, so that if there is a need to go for the army to move or to go into battle, to conquer different parts of the land or to reach different parts of the empire, you would have a faster path. So you can actually gain better political control over all your empire. Okay. The other important development is the aqueduct. I'm sure you have seen this aqueduct before. Some of the aqueducts are still being used today. It is actually a structure to carry water, from the hills to supply clean water to the Roman towns. Okay, so you see in the picture the construction process of how an arch is being cast. You have this timber kind of form. Okay, then you have all these pieces of bricks, right, to form the arch. So people could still, you could still use the space in between, right? And it also saved a lot of materials. It also made the flow of water possible, because now you could actually control the angle of the water. Now look at this picture here. If you have a reservoir in a higher area, okay, the aqueduct acts as a channel of water, almost like a big water pipe. Okay, so they had to bring water to the city. Now the Roman engineers would be able to calculate the angle of this channel. Sometimes they had to cut through hills in order for gravity to pull water, to bring water into the city. So it is something that the Romans developed. So now you can have fresh water into the city. Okay, and the use of concrete to actually seal this area, almost like a waterproofing element, right? Seal this area, prevented water from seeping through. Okay, so this is how the aqueduct is like. This is another interesting development. The Romans had flushing toilets, and you normally had water running through the bottom of these toilets, okay, so that whatever that the waste produced would be washed away. Okay, so we can say that the Romans pioneered the early sewer systems. Now, can you tell me what is weird about this picture? What is happening here? Now, the Romans didn't have the luxury to have sewer system in all their homes. Not everyone. So they had this public toilets, okay, and it also becomes a place of, because you share the public toilet, so you're bound to bump into your friend. So you can see that it also becomes a meeting point. Okay? It's really something that we don't want to do today. Okay, other than that, they have bridges, and also drainage systems. Okay, it's using the same idea as how a aqueduct works. You see a series of arches and piers, right, to connect between one part of the land to the other part of the land. Right, so we have looked at the infrastructure. Now let's move on to the building types. Okay, you have the first building types, which are called the insulas. Insulas can be seen, maybe the easiest example that we can look at is almost like our shop houses today, where you have shops on the ground floor and then you have houses on the upper floors, right? Now, insulas are actually homes for the lower class of the society. Okay, and normally each family will own one room, over here. Okay, one room in the apartment. And insulas, you can see, it became a social problem in the Roman Empire because normally it's very overcrowded. You have many people living there, very noisy. Okay, they didn't have proper sanitation. That means they didn't have clean water supply. They didn't have toilets. Therefore you need to go and share the toilet somewhere else. They didn't have proper garbage disposal system, and also, most importantly, because they were built so close together and they were built out of timber, it became a fire hazard because once one unit catches fire, the other units will catch fire easily as well. So there was one Roman emperor who said, he wants all the insulas to be built away, from public buildings because they were fire hazards. Now this is an illustration to show you how an insula life in an insula would be. So you have the public water supply over here being brought by the aqueduct. So if you need to get water, you need to come and fetch the water from here. If you're staying over here, maybe this mother with a baby, you need to fetch the water from there. Right, and if you're cooking, you need to get the water from there. Right, then on the ground floors will be where the shops are. Okay, this is just to show you how extensive is the construction of the insula. So all these are actually insulas in Rome. All right. Now, because of the scarcity in water supply, you can say that the Romans introduced the first fast food restaurants because not everybody would be able to have a kitchen and cook. So there were records written to say that the Romans often just buy their food on the shops in the ground floor, buys their produce in the shops in the ground floor, because of this lack of water and sanitation. Okay, so different kinds of building activities takes place on the ground floor. Correct. Other than that, you have the domus. Now, the domus is for the richer people in the society. The domus is a house in the town area. So maybe on the weekdays, where you had to work in the town near to your businesses, into your shops, okay, you would actually stay in the domus. Okay, and during the weekends, you would actually go back to the villa, which is your real family residence. And villas are almost self-sustaining because they have farms and you can actually grow your crops. You have a bigger space for the children to run about, for the animals to roam. Okay, this is the house of the rich people in the suburban area. So in the period where they had to work and manage their businesses in the towns, they will be staying in the domus. But for weekends, for holidays, for breaks, they will go to the villa. Okay, so you can see the description over here. So villas can be said like almost little communities. Okay, let's move on to public building type, the forum. These are public buildings which is built by the Roman emperor, for the people. Okay, so the forum, unfortunately, is not a building, but it is a space, right? Forums were cultural centers in a city. They were a place where you have temples, you have schools, basilicas, marketplace, and also therma, the baths, located around the forum. Okay, so it is a very important place, for the city, because it can be said to be the heart of the city. So a forum is actually made up of many different buildings, yeah, which I have mentioned just now. And normally you have an open space, yeah, in the forum. This is the city center, where the city center is, right? Now last week in the Greek lecture, we also saw a similar space like this. Can you remember what is the open space, which is also a place where many activities took place? Yeah, it is also a place where many people would come together to meet, to discuss things and political ideas. Yeah, the place in Greek is actually the agora, which is the marketplace. Okay, but it's not as complicated, yeah, as not as extensive as the Roman Forum. Okay, so this is how it looks like. You have a place in the Roman Forum, yeah, where people could actually come and discuss and debate, yeah, of new ideas, right? The other important building type, okay, is the basilica. Okay, basilica contain interior colonnades that divided the space, giving aisles or arcaded space at one or both ends. Here, this is the arcaded space, okay, with an apse at one end, yeah, where the magistrate sat, okay, and often a slightly raised dais. Okay, this is where in this case this is not where the magistrate sat. This is actually where the statue of the emperor is located. So a basilica is a big public space. You can see the scale of the human, yeah, to the scale of the space, right, where it is being used for different activities. Okay, and the basilica, we will see this basilica pattern, yeah, or the basilica design being used in the development of the early churches. Okay, because it is a very common building form where the interior spaces, yeah, were very big and many people could come in. All right, so this is the early design of the basilica. You will see that they have a central aisle, okay, wide and was higher. Okay, this is the central aisle. So many activities took place here, okay, while you have smaller spaces on the left and on the right side of the aisle. And over here you have what we call, over here you have what we call the clerestory window, yeah, which windows placed very high from the eye level. Definitely, if you're human, you are here. And these windows are actually for light to come in. And these are clerestory windows. Nobody could look out of it. It plays the role of bringing more light into the space. Okay. So basilica is used as a meeting hall, all right, as a law court. It could contain the stock exchange. It's used for businesses, offices, administrative buildings. Okay, there are many uses of the basilica, all right, and this kind of building type. Okay, very famous, very easily constructed in the Roman times, yeah, because of the very easy design. Okay, so it's being adapted for many different kinds of usage. Public bath or the thermal bath. Now, in the Roman times, right, the emperor would actually build the thermal bath, yeah, for the people of Rome to go and have their hot shower, their hot bath. They will have many different kinds of pools in the thermal bath, yeah, so that the people could go and clean up themselves and also to relax themselves. Okay, in the thermal bath, which is a commonly shared bath, I can say that it's almost like a gymnasium, like a spa area, a swimming pool. You have all these different kinds of rooms. You have the cold room, the war room, the cladarium, the hot room. You also have the swimming pool, the gymnasium, and the library. It is said that in certain a period of the Roman Empire, yeah, the women folk will go to the thermal bath in the daytime, yeah, where the men are busy at work. Maybe they are at a forum, or maybe they are at a stock exchange. Okay, so the women will actually use this space. Remember, this is a public space. And in the evening, yeah, after work, the men would actually come to the thermal bath, right? Alright, here you can see a description of the bath of Pompeii, a very important bath. And what you see over here, these are lockers, yeah, it used to have wooden doors, okay? So these are lockers where you come to put your things. Now the interesting thing with the thermal bath is that it not only serves a purpose to, it's a practical purpose to clean yourself, yeah, but it's also a place where Romans would come to negotiate business deals, yeah, and they will also come to do their workout, and most often they have slaves helping them, yeah, to rub ointments on their body, yeah, while they discuss their business deals. There are also libraries if you want to chill and read, okay, and also food can be served while you are chilling. So it's not a daily thing for the Romans, yeah, to go to the bath, maybe 2 or 3 times in a week, yeah, where they go. And another reason for the thermal bath is because that they didn't have water supply, like what we mentioned earlier. So you have aqueducts actually channeling water to the thermal baths, yeah, so that it can be used by all. And the thermal bath actually has this kind of heating system. Okay, imagine that they used to have a floor over this system. Okay, so you boil or you burned the wood, and then the heat, yeah, the hot air will go underneath this heating system. Okay, so you had hot water, cold water. So it's a very complicated, yeah, building form. So this is the Bath of Caracalla, another very famous thermal bath. The next building is the theatre. Okay, it is similar to Greek, yeah, but it is not located in a mountain. Okay, it is completely built. You can think of the Roman theatre almost like our stadium design, okay, where the seatings, yeah, which is higher, yeah, going down lower, is actually built man-made. As compared to the Greeks, yeah, which is being built on the slope of a hill. So the seats are actually cut, and the gradient of the slope of the hill forms the gradient of the seats. However, for the Romans, because most of their land are flat, okay, these theatres are located in the town area, so everything has to be reconstructed. Okay, so very similar in function, yeah, as how the Greeks would have used it, but different in location. So here you have the amphitheater. One of the most famous amphitheater is the Colosseum. Okay, it is a fusion of two theaters, so it forms a circle. Okay, it is a place for animals or for gladiator fights. Okay, it could also be filled with water for naval battles. Right, now this example is the best example of an amphitheater, which is the Colosseum. They use different kinds of column orders, the Doric being at the bottom, yeah, Ionic, and then Corinthian columns. Okay, so what you see here is actually supposed to be hidden, yeah, underground. Yeah, here, yeah, is the floor of the Colosseum. Okay, but it is gone now because it is made of timber and covered with sand. Okay, so what you're seeing underneath here is actually the spaces underneath. So this is where the floor is, okay, and this portion here that you're seeing here is actually somewhere underneath here. All right, so there are many different levels, yeah, in the Colosseum. So it depends on where you are in society. Okay, so you sit depending in the hierarchy of the seats. Okay, now normally slaves will be seated right on the top. It is described to be a very hot space. Okay, and you can't really get a very nice view as compared to if you are the emperor, you will be sitting here in a very nice sitting, and if you're the wealthy and powerful citizen, you will be seated there. We can actually see the option, very much like when you buy a concert ticket today. You pay more, you get a better view, and you pay less, you get the very unclear view. Right? So archaeologists have determined that an aqueduct was built specially to bring water to the Colosseum, because you can actually have seal the floor of the Colosseum watertight, fill it with water so that you can have a naval battle over here. Okay, so that's how interesting it is. And they used to have this roof-like structure, made out of cloth-like material. Okay, very much like how you will put a sail on a sailboat. Okay, as a roof for the Colosseum. And here you have an opening, almost like the oculus. Okay, very old movie for now. This is Russell Crowe's Gladiator. If you have time, go and watch it. If you haven't, just to have a feel of how a gladiator fight looks like. Hail Emperor, those who are about to die salutes you. This is a very famous, common saying by any gladiator who is going into battle. Now, gladiators can be made out of slaves, like in Russell Crowe's case, he was a slave, and brought into the gladiator fight just for fun. This was another structure that was built by the emperor for fun, so that the people in Rome could be entertained, so that he believed that when the people are entertained, they had nice baths, they had nice roads, they had clean water to use, that they would not complain. Okay, so this was the kind of political strategy that they have. So anyway, going back to the gladiator, you either had a gladiator who is a servant, who is a slave, or you have a gladiator who is from the lower classes of the society, the Roman society, and he wants to be recognized, and be in a better position in society. So if you win this gladiator fight, you will then be recognized as someone who is brave. You'll probably be given the title of a knight, and therefore you raise in your rank in the hierarchy of the Roman society. Okay, so it is something that the men, who wanted to have a better place in society, look up to. Okay, so you couldn't control what happens in a gladiator fight. Okay, you might win, you might lose, right? Therefore, all gladiators, before the start of the battle, would say this saying to the emperor. Those who are about to die salutes you, because you wouldn't know whether you will survive or not, in this gladiator attack. In this gladiator fight. So this is how the underground, of the Colosseum looks like. You have these gangways to bring in the animals, a maze of tunnels to bring the animals into the fighting range. And here you have timber, and it is said that it's normally covered with sand. So after every fight, they will scoop out the sand and throw, because it would normally be filled with blood. So they were using sand as a means of soaking up the blood. Okay. Okay, the next public building type is a circus. The most important event at the circus was the chariot racing. I would like to always use this example that the circus is almost like the F1 track in the Roman times. Only they did not use cars, but they used chariots. So you have like 12 chariots competing against each other, to be the first chariot that crosses the finish line. Okay, so you can see that this so-called F1 track for the chariot racing has a spina in the center. And the function of the spina is actually to host many different statues of the Roman gods. So as the chariots race around the spina, it is also trying to do an act of respect yeah, or religious, with religious connotations to all the different kinds of gods. Okay, so to cater for the demand of mass public entertainment space, on a lavish scale, Julius Caesar expanded the Circus. Yeah, this is Circus Maximus, around 50 BC, where the track measured approximately 600 meters in length. Yeah, and could accommodate 250 spectators. So this would be how it looks like. The emperor spent a lot of money to entertain the people. In fact, 159 days of each year are holidays, yeah, and on these holidays, emperors provided amazing circus games, or gladiator fights to keep the people happy. So can you imagine 159 days of the year is actually a holiday, and everybody goes and watches all these things. So this is a very smart move, yeah, to keep people happy so that people would not question, yeah, the emperor. Okay, so this is how the Circus Maximus looks like in comparison with all the buildings around it. Okay, another place for entertainment. Okay, going on to a sacred architecture, which is the temple. Okay, look at the diagram and the drawing of this temple. Okay, it is really like the Greek temple. It has a pediment in front here. It has got a series of columns. It's got a staircase. Okay, it has only one portico and a main facade in front. Yeah, it was built on a podium. That is what makes it different, yeah, from a Greek temple, because it's got a podium to raise it up. Yeah, instead of having stairs all around, it only has them on the main facade, so only one entrance as compared to the Greek example. Right, showing you still how some of the activities like the burnt offering and things like that are still being done outside. Okay, now this is another temple, which is a very famous temple. I think all architecture students should remember this, should be able to identify this temple, which is the Parthenon. Now don't be confused with the one in Greek. Yeah, don't be confused with the one in Greek. The Greek one is called Parthenon and this one is called Pantheon. What is the difference? Can you describe the difference between the Parthenon and the Pantheon? Okay, the Pantheon has a dome, okay, which was developed by the Romans, as we all know. Yeah, so it has a very typical temple front, yeah, but it's got a dome at the back. Okay, and what is interesting is that if you measure from the center here, yeah, you will see that if you rotate this measurement, okay, you will come out with a perfect sphere. Okay, so the width in the floor plan, yeah, of the Pantheon is equivalent to the height of the Pantheon. So you create a very interesting space within it. Okay, and remember we talked about the coffered ceiling earlier on, yeah, in this lecture. We talked about how coffered ceilings were actually cast with concrete, and if you notice that the coffered ceiling, as it rises up, it becomes thinner and thinner. See, here is thick. Okay, it becomes thinner and thinner. The reason for this is so that as you grow, as the dome goes up higher, yeah, the material becomes less and it becomes lighter. So you could actually build a column that it goes higher. And also, yeah, the size of the coffers differs. So the ones that are at the bottom are said to be bigger, and as you go on top, to the top, the size of the coffers becomes smaller. The reason for this is so that you can create, yeah, an optical illusion, yeah, of the viewer. If you're here and if you're looking up, you will see that the dome appears to be much more higher than what it actually is. Okay, it's playing with the idea of perspective. And the other interesting thing about this building is this opening here, yeah, which is called the oculus. Okay, see here, the oculus, the only natural light enters through an unglazed oculus at the center of the dome through the bronze door at the portico. So there's a bronze door here, yeah, and you have light coming in from here. Okay, it is not glazed, that means it doesn't have any covering, it's not covered with glass, it's just an opening. Okay, so you have this lighting effect, yeah, coming in. See the size of the coffers becoming smaller, yeah, so it plays that role, right? And if you see here, yeah, the of course Jesus, the statue of Jesus is not supposed to be there. Okay, when the Romans intended it to be, the Pantheon is a temple of war, so before the army goes out to war, the general would normally come here and pay his respects. There used to be different kinds of statues, yeah, which is gone now. Okay, and you see that it's lavishly made, and the proportion, you know, of the human to the space. Again, yeah, these differences in the scale of, especially in sacred architecture in religious buildings where the scale of the human is small, scale of the space is big. It creates the spiritual effect of how man is small as compared to God, which is a very, which is, you know, uh, represented in this building, which is huge, which is big. Okay. Oh, we have come to the end of the lecture. All right. Now, before we go off, yeah, before I stop this recording, I would like to once again show you this image, yeah, and to show you how the different building typologies, yeah, which were introduced during the Roman times, yeah, played a very important role, yeah, in the development of the architecture. Okay, aesthetically they look like brick, but structurally they are very, very different. Okay, that's all for this lecture. Thank you.